Hello and welcome back to the Fairbanks Year-Round podcast. As you maybe can tell if you're watching this already, it's going to be a little bit different. It's just me. I don't have a guest. I did have a cancellation, and instead of filling it, I thought, well, I'll use this opportunity to talk about me because I think we've talked enough about other people. And this is all really about me, if you didn't know that already. Just kidding, of course. But I did want to cover a few things that I've been running through my mind that you may be interested in. It's probably a short podcast, but I'm not going to talk about my history and all those things. I'm not as interesting as maybe I'd like to believe I am. But I have been getting questions from folks who see my social media, listen or watch the podcast, and they're like, well, aren't you a real estate agent? I'm like, I am a real estate agent. Then why aren't you talking about real estate more often? And I have a reason that I'm doing this. For one, I love doing real estate and I love selling real estate. And with anything, if anybody owns a business, they already know this, but whatever business you're in, making cakes, selling real estate, whatever, selling cars, there is the act of that, like actively selling real estate. But for the most part, marketing and getting people to want to use your service or buy your product is a huge, huge part of that. All of that to say that social media has been for at least 10 years, probably 20 years, very early. People were like, hey, social media is where it's at. This is where you need to do your advertising, your marketing. It's the future. And I have been very resistant to that. I started selling real estate 7 years ago. And again, it was still being said then, it's being said now. But I sold real estate by very old school traditional terms. I knocked doors. I made cold calls, all the different things. And I didn't really always love doing that. So finally last year, I decided, hey, I need to start doing more social media. And every maybe 5 years before that, I would say that every year. But last year, I really started to try harder. I got my wife involved to be like, hey, let's do some more of these things. And it's all 2023. I never really could get very excited about doing it. And I'd always say, oh, I hate doing social media. I just do it for, again, the marketing or to try and bring myself business. So I think that for me personally, that was a bad mindset to have. I want to enjoy what I'm doing for one. And so I started thinking about it more and more. And over the year and the remaining months, maybe November, December of the year, I thought to myself, I need to change how I'm doing this. So I went and looked at what a bunch of other agents were doing, successful social media people were doing, and had conversations with other people that were doing it successfully. And what I came to is, yes, I do sell real estate, but all my thought is a lot of my clients, they want me to be the expert. I would say almost all my clients, if not all, they want me to be the expert in selling real estate. They don't need to be the expert. So I was trying to do a bunch of training for clients to say, hey, here's how the whole process works and different things. And there is certainly a time and place for that. For instance, every one of my clients, I put them through a buyer consult, which takes usually about 30 minutes, just breaking down what the process looks like. So, but there is a difference between having a client's expectations set and being knowledgeable enough that they're not confused as we go through the process. Like I do want to educate in that way, as opposed to me trying to educate you to replace me. Not that I'm afraid you're going to replace me, but I think it's kind of unnecessary. So on the social media side, there's a bunch of agents, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying it's something they do, and I've decided to do something different. But there's a bunch of agents that are very much on the educational side, which again is great, and I think there's a place for that. But what occurred to me is most people are buying their house and they're spending whatever, usually 3 months to get that done. Between the looking, being under contract, moving and everything, a 3-month timeline is usually enough time to get that done. And then I can't imagine they would still be tuning into a lot of my content. They've already bought their house, and maybe in 5-6 years they'll buy it again. And so a lot of people, and this is true throughout, again, a bunch of different sectors in social media, start doing things to the side. Like, oh, everybody wants to see your personal life. They want to see you as a person. And that's what really gets people engaged. And again, that's a lot of what I did in 2023. And it was kind of hit or miss for me. I'm somewhat private. I don't know if I've talked about this. I have children, but I don't want them being on social media. And if I was just going just for views, kids and puppies and everything seem to be the way to get the most views, but I'm not really willing to, sell my kids out in that manner. So again, it was working to a degree, but it wasn't, I don't know. I felt like I was trying to be someone I wasn't, like some influencer, local influencer that's like excited about everything, or you know what I mean? Just, I was kind of falling into these traps here. So, and I know this is going kind of long, but all of this to say that I looked at it, I said, okay, my clients that want to buy real estate, I think that they would appreciate the one-on-one that I offer as a real estate agent, which is what I do with every single client. So training them up one-on-one is very effective. If I need to make a video or have something where it's like, hey, everyone keeps asking me the same question, here's a video to answer that more efficiently for you, that's totally fine. But having the ability to say, hey, this is a very much a relationship between you and I'm catering to you specifically. And again, there is training that needs to be done in those cases to get you ready. And mostly it's expectation management. Just knowing what to expect is a huge stress relief for anybody. And we can get into the details of that some other time, but knowing what to expect is way better than the unknown. And that's really what a lot of my quote unquote training or education is for clients during the process. So I feel like they have me for that. What I want the social media to be is all the other times that they're living here in Fairbanks. So the people that are my clients, and this is not true for every industry, but for me, my clients are in some way connected to Fairbanks. You could say sellers are leaving Fairbanks, so maybe that will end there. But people want to live in Fairbanks. They're moving here through military or whatever it is. And so I want to give people ideas of things to do. I want them to know the community. I want them to know the different businesses and the people behind those businesses. And that's what a big part of the podcast, Fairbanks Year Round is bringing in business owners, event planners, interesting people in the community and letting you see their stories and having those conversations. And I try to make them very conversational, and I'm getting better and better at it because it is a bit of a skill to have a microphone in front of your face and a camera in front of your face and act like it's not there. So I'm trying to learn and do that better, of course. But I wanted to feel like you're a fly on the wall with these conversations. Sadly, you can't interject more than, I guess, just in the comment section or something. But, and again, me kind of be a surrogate for you to be a little bit of the everyman, if you will, asking questions that I think most people would be interested in with those people. And then outside of that, if you see any more of my social media, YouTube and things like that, like I've recently had a video come out about hunting the Northern Lights. And again, we can look through the whole video, and I don't know if I bring up real estate once. It's what you do while you're here. So real estate is where you live, and it's important. It's great. It's what you can invest in. Like there's a bunch of things you can do with real estate, but at the basis of it, it's putting you in this location of Fairbanks. And I say Fairbanks, North Pole, basically the borough, and in Alaska in general, because you are going to travel around. So all of that to say is like, when you get here, what are you going to want to do? And you're not going to want to do all the things that I'm interested in, of course, but these give you some ideas of what can be done. There is like a love-hate relationship in the borough sometimes. Some people just absolutely love being here. Some people absolutely hate being here and just want to get out. And then there's in the middle where most people, you love it most of the time, but then about January, you get depressed. And I'm looking at my wife over in the corner who's ready to move every January. And then summer comes along and you remember why Alaska is so great. So there's a wide spectrum. Again, all of that to say, I want you to know that I'm a real estate agent. I want to sell you properties. And that's good for me, of course. And I believe I bring a great service, so it would be good for you. But outside of that, my social media efforts are really towards having you enjoy Fairbanks as much as possible. And I think that's really important. Now, dovetailing off of that is getting integrated with the community. I don't know what things used to be like generations past. I'm 30, flirty and thriving, but I'm 30. And making friends and getting integrated into a community for me is not something that comes very naturally. And you may feel that way as well. I don't know if in the past it just happened to be, without social media and the internet and things, maybe it was just something where communities really had to be together and they were much more close knit. Maybe it wasn't that way at all. And I'm just, making the good old days sound great. I don't know, but what I do know, and the more and more I hear about this, is having meaningful relationships in your life. Of course, your family is a big part of that, your spouse, your kids, all that, but also meaningful friendships in the community and being attached to that is a big part of just general happiness and well-being in life. And so being able to, again, talk with all these people in the community is fun for me. And me personally gets me more integrated, which is great, but I want you also to have that where you can get more integrated into something that you really enjoy and start leaning in and having a place where you feel like you fit in, you feel like the people around you are, of similar mindset of what you like and things like that. And yeah, anyways, I think it's overall a good thing. So bringing the community together is kind of the second part of that. So that's that. Now, we can talk about a little bit of real estate because I had something else on my mind right after I say this is why I don't always talk about real estate. I do want to talk about real estate, and there is important things to know about it. And this is a conversation I was having with a lender just yesterday, actually, about how we're changing how we're doing offers in this current market. So I think an agent should always be looking at the current market and adjusting to get the best outcome for their clients. What I did in 2017 is not the same as what I did in 2021 when everything was going crazy, and it's not the same as what I'm doing now. So, as most people know, interest rates have risen quite dramatically from their low. To be honest, we're kind of at the average of what it is over the really long term, but most people got really used to that 2, 3, 4% that was happening for, I want to say around 10 years. But if you look back all the way to like the 60s, our average is more like 7%. So I would argue that we're not really in a high interest period, but it feels that way, especially after coming after such a low interest period. And prices rose up so much through the whole COVID stuff that now it's like, okay, now prices skyrocketed. They haven't really come down, and now interest has gone way up. So the monthly payments are what's mostly affected by that. Your monthly payment is so much higher with, maybe 2, 3 extra points on interest. So what I would normally do is not always, again, depends on the situation, but in general, I want to get my clients on the buying side the lowest price possible. And we'll talk about the selling side in a little bit. So the lowest price possible is obviously what everybody wants. They want a deal, and there's a bunch of ways to do that. And I'm not going to get into the details of negotiation right now. However, what I'm seeing, and again, this was brought to my attention a few weeks ago, or maybe a few months ago by this same lender, but we kind of just delved into a little deeper, is let's say you were buying a house for $400,000 and you wanted to get $15,000 off $400,000, and so you offer $385,000 and the seller accepts. It's like, hey, hunky dory, you just saved yourself $15,000. However, if we had taken that $15,000 and we said, you know what, seller, instead of offering you $385,000, we're going to offer you $400,000, but we're going to ask that you give us $15,000 in seller credits that will buy down our interest rate. And I'm currently doing it. I've done quite a few deals like this. Of course, this is not like a super uncommon thing to do, but this is something to think about. And you think, well, okay, that $15,000, now my loan is higher by $15,000 because I didn't reduce the purchase price. And it's like, yeah, that's true. That's true. However, your mortgage, and I should have got some real numbers here, your mortgage payment is reduced by, in this scenario, maybe $250, $275 every month. And you're like, oh, okay. So now every month for 30 years, you are going to have a lower payment. And that $15,000 you saved at the beginning is great and it's all front loaded, but your payments are actually higher, even though the loan amount is lower, right? So over 30 years, if you were to not pay it off early, and again, there's a bunch of considerations for this, but let's just say you were going to go the full 30-year term, the higher mortgage obviously is going to be, because that's kind of a fixed, that is a fixed thing. The mortgage payment, which is just your principal and interest there, is going to be way more, like accumulatively at the end of 30 years. If it's higher, obviously it's just going to add up. 360 payments. If it was 1,000, then it's 360,000. If it was 1,500, whatever that is, 540. So it does add up. The one I was just looking at, it would take, I think it was about 30 months to make back. It was around $15,000. It was going to take about 30 months to make that back. So less than 3 years to be able to make back that initial, like instead of getting the price reduction. And then from there, it's just kind of all gravy. It's just lower payments. And one more added benefit that the lender brought up, and I didn't think about as well, is refinances. So refinances are not free. People think, oh, I'll just refinance when things go low. And usually it's around, again, this is a rule of thumb, it can vary, around a 1% interest rate decrease is when it becomes probably worth it to refinance. So if you have a 6% interest rate and you can now get a 5% interest rate without having to buy it down, then it's maybe worth refinancing, but you may spend $8,000-10,000 to get that refinance done. So buying your interest rate down up front is going to save you that mortgage payment. It also is going to save you a possible refinance. We had one that they bought themselves down a 1.5%. So really the interest rate would have to drop down to like 4.75% interest before they would even think to refinance. So it may have saved him one of those refinances in the middle. You never really know. So, but it is an option. Do whatever you want. Of course, I always give options and it's up to the clients to decide, but I think it could be a real money saving avenue for people as well. So there's my little tidbit of real estate. There's my little explanation of why I talk in such a general way about Fairbanks. And I'm not always just drilling in education on real estate and different things about real estate to you. And again, if that is something you want, there's a lot of, especially local realtors that are doing that. So you can certainly still get that. But I'm trying to do something that is helpful in a different way for people moving to the area or people that are still living here. And I think that is it. So thank you so much for listening. Hopefully that was enlightening for you. And I'm really excited to keep moving forward in this direction. If you have some ideas, again, of people that you would want on as guests of this podcast, or if you want me to see me go do some activity or something, I don't know. I don't know if I'm really going to take much of that, but if you have ideas, I'm always willing to listen. If you say, hey, I've always been interested in ice fishing or something, I'd be happy to maybe do a video about that or something. So kind of an interesting way of going about it. But thank you so much for listening again. And we'll be back next week with more of our regular programming. Thank you so much for listening. If you want more content from AK Blake, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, all under the handles AK Blake. Or if you want to listen to more podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, it's there, Fairbanks year-round. You may or may not know, I am a local real estate agent here in Fairbanks with the Summit Realty Group. So if you like what I'm doing and you want to move to the area, you already live in the area, or you're looking to invest further into real estate in the area, you can reach me. Probably the best will be either my website, akblake.com, my email, blake@akblake.com, or my phone number is probably the fastest, 907-651-8356. You can call or text. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.